Goeiedag, mijn naam is Evan, ik ben immigratieprocureur hier in Amerika en ik wil je helpen om immigratiewet te verstaan. Now, it continues to go around all the social media platforms, this fear or this anxiety of Trump's immigration reforms and everything in light of the DC shooting that happened right before Thanksgiving and the impact on Afrikaner refugees and on Afrikaner asylees and pretty much all spectrum of relief programs that could be available to you as Afrikaners still inside Africa or here in the United States. And I've said this many times, that this is going to be beneficial for you. This is something that is a long time coming and has needed to happen. And the fact that an Afghan asylee who had allegedly helped the U.S. government during our time in Afghanistan went and executed one U.S. soldier, a National Guard, a woman from West Virginia. And at the time that I'm making this video on December 2nd, another one is still in critical condition. Last time I checked, he is still with us and he is still alive. But to brutally execute them. You know, we're not just talking about murder. We're talking about cold-blooded execution in the street, to shoot them in the head. You know, it is telling of the failures of our relief programs, and those relief programs being asylum and refugee programs. And President Trump's reaction to it, I said, it is long overdue. This entire system is very broken, and people know that it's being abused. And I talked about this in a previous video. For example, it wasn't a client of mine, but I was sitting in a WebEx hearing the other day, and attorneys can log on, and we sit while other hearings are happening. And this individual from, I believe, the Dominican Republic had been in the United States for a number of years. He was recently apprehended by ICE, put in detention, and this was his initial appearance in front of an immigration judge. Immigration judge says, do you fear returning to, again, I think it was Dominican Republic, I don't remember, one of the Central or South American countries. And he said, yes, I do. And the judge said, well, why haven't you filled out an asylum application? You've been here longer than a year. And the person said, well, I don't know. And he goes, is it because you didn't think you'd get caught? And he answered, honestly, he said, yeah, that's why. So you see that people come here illegally, wait until they get caught, then they claim asylum. Then they say, oh, I fear returning. And even though that 1 year point might be over, they can still apply for withholding of removal and protection under the Convention Against Torture. And then if they happen to get bonded out, if they have a sponsor, and again, if you've been here illegally for a certain period of time, you might now have family, you might have connections to be willing to sponsor you for a bond. If you get released from detention, then you're talking these immigration cases are being scheduled 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. So you've now bought yourself legal time and status to remain. So of course the system is being abused. And it's being abused by people who, just like if you look at, we talk about little Mogadishu and people from third world countries coming here and trying to turn this place into their own, the place that they fled from. That's not what this was ever meant to be. You shouldn't be afraid to go to Minnesota because it's little Mogadishu. It's Somalia. And you just see now Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, being caught up in this whole scandal of billions being siphoned away for Somali expats and all of this. And the system is just, it's eating itself. And that's one of the problems that I said, while this is the greatest country in the world, and I believe that you all should come here and contribute to the society, do be aware that I am of the opinion that the United States is in a transitional phase because we don't know who we are anymore. And part of that will be figuring out where we go from here. But all of this to say that all of these reforms that are coming in from President Trump that are limiting or stopping certain relief programs, it will impact asylum seekers because, as you've seen, they have put a permanent stop on making asylum decisions. They're still interviewing. We still have clients who are being interviewed for asylum, but that's paused, so that will have an impact on you. On refugees, no impact at all. No impact at all. The program is still going on as it should go on. I've heard nothing to the contrary of it, and that's a good thing. And President Trump is not trying to stop people who are willing to contribute to Western civilization, Judeo-Christian values, the whole foundation of what America actually is. That is what Afrikaners bring to the table. And again, all of the detractors just heard the dog whistle to say, make America white again and white supremacy. And no, of course, that's not it. Historically, you can see that nations that have adopted Western civilization succeed and prosper. Look at countries like Japan. Japan's entire modernization was because they adopted Western values, Western culture, and then after World War II, they left behind the values and the militarism and that sort of stuff that brought them to the brink of destruction while still keeping the Western values of industrialization, of Judeo-Christian values, of democratic governments, of things like that. And even countries that teeter on the brink, such as China, right? China, of course, has gone down the rabbit hole of communism, and that is single-handedly the worst possible decision that that country can make. But they've adopted Western styles of culture and civilization and economics and running a country. So you see that. If they could abandon communism, they'd be on the same level as Japan. Countries that refuse to adopt that Western core values, and you see that in the Middle East, you see that in Africa, that resort to tribalism, that resort to cronyism, that resort to socialism, and perverse sort of racial socialism, they're doomed to failure. Afrikaners are not bringing that to the United States. They are bringing the Western civilization and values and culture and traditions that we believe is what it is to be American. So what President Trump is stopping is not going to hinder your ability to come here and your ability to be a functioning, contributing member of society. So see all of this stuff as good things. See all of this as making the country in which you will eventually come to settle here in the United States better for you in the long run, because it is trying to stop the people who have been leeching off the system, who have been conning the system, who have been trying to cheat the system for, the last however many years through both left and right administrations. So let's be honest there. So again, don't consider any of this as a bad thing. It is a good thing. And just, keep watching the news so you stay informed, because if you are planning to come here, it is important to, again, assimilate and become part of the American way of life, the American culture, and part of that is knowing what's going on with politics and government. So do stay in touch with, keep in the loop of it, pay attention to it, and I'll continue to post here on the site if I see anything new or interesting about it. So remember to like, subscribe, share. I'm close to 14,000 subscribers. That'd be awesome if we can get there. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and I'll see you for the next video.